No, I'm not sitting. No. No, I'm not sitting. I'm not sitting. What's going on? Yeah, you did. I appreciate it.
2 million. That was great.
Good evening, everybody. If I could get your attention, it is 5:30, so if you could find a seat, and we'll go ahead and get this started. Thank you for being here tonight. Good to see a decent crowd. Important conversation, so glad the public's here. I'll go ahead and call this joint workshop to order. This is a meeting of the Flagler Beach City Commission, Flagler County Board of County Commissioners, Palm Coast City Council, City of Bunnell Commission, Town of Beverly Beach Commission, and Town of Marineland. That is Wednesday, February 5th. It is 5:30 p.m. And if everybody could please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In our commission meetings, we take this time for a brief moment of silence. We specifically want to recognize and honor the men and women in the military and our local first responders that protect and serve. All right, thank you very much. Today's meeting, we use and want to give kudos to Commissioner Cooley from Flagler Beach for pulling us all together a couple years ago. We use these meetings to discuss issues that impact all of our communities, so jointly we can develop a collective approach for addressing challenges and specific items. I want to go next into our roll call, so I'll start with Mayor Robinson. If we can go down the dais and just introduce yourself for the record.
I'm here. I'm Kathleen Robinson. I'm mayor of the city of Bunnell.
Ty Miller, Palm Coast City Council.
Mike Norris, Palm Coast Mayor.
Greg Hansen, County Commissioner, District 2.
Andy Dance, County Commission Chair.
James Sherman, City Commissioner, Flagler Beach, filling in for Commissioner Cooley tonight. He wanted me to inform everyone his sincerest apologies that he's not able to make it. He is under the weather.
Scott Spradley, Commissioner, City of Flagler Beach.
Steve Emmett, Mayor of Beverly Beach.
Jeff Skidema, Vice Mayor, Beverly Beach.
All right, thank you all. It's good to know Flagler Beach has a strong bullpen. So on the agenda, these were items submitted by each of the commission's councils, and the first two are really the same thing. So I'll take a little privilege to combine the first item A with B. They both go hand in hand, and we'll talk about a little bit of history, where we've been and where we're going. On beach nourishment. We have a packet, it's on the agenda. If you don't have a handout, it's online underneath today's meeting on the county website. This backup is posted there so you can follow along. This packet is what we'll be using to guide our discussion. Before I move into the agenda, you do have minutes from the prior meeting. Not everybody was here, but I just wanted to make sure if there were any corrections that we needed to note from the minutes, that if you had time to review them, we make note of any corrections to those. We're not an approving board, but at least if there's corrections you note, we can bring them to the attention of the clerk. All right, well, hearing nothing, we'll go ahead and move on to the agenda. So there's an executive summary attached right after the minutes, and it's called the Flagler County's Coastal Erosion and Management Executive Summary. Our county administrator and staff put this together so that it can guide our discussions. And the beginning, we talk about where we've been. So I'm I've tasked Commissioner Hanson, who is our senior member on the commission and has had the longest tenure working with beach issues, to talk a little bit about the introduction and where we've been up to this point and what got us here. Commissioner Hanson.
Thank you, Andy. Yeah, I came to the commission in 2017, and of course, that was right after Matthew. And Matthew was the eye-opener for the county. We had, up until that point, we had experienced gradual erosion in the county on the beaches, and it really was, there was nothing alarming. It was just there. We had good dunes. We were protected. We hadn't had any flooding. We hadn't had any breaches in the dune, and so we knew we were okay. But Matthew opened our eyes up. So we went back and looked at some of the studies that had been done, and we determined that in the last 25 years prior to Matthew, and then Matthew included, we'd lost 70 feet of our beach. So that was the eye opener. That was the one that said, "Boy, we need to do something." And so I personally started attending the statewide beach management meetings that were held twice a year. And it was kind of an eye-opener for me sitting in the audience when one guy was giving a presentation on beach management plans throughout the county, and he said, it's interesting to note that of all the counties that are on the beach in Florida, both West Coast and East Coast, there's only one county that doesn't have a management plan, and that's Flagler County. I came back with that little data point for our staff and said, I think we're behind the power curve. I think we need to get started. So we started putting it together right then, right in 2017. We started looking at it. We hired Olson, and they're an engineering firm, to help us come up with a beach management plan, and they really did a good job. They attacked it and got us started down the right way, and they kept telling us aside, not in their report, but in their aside, they kept saying, you're not going to be in the game. You're not going to be in the game unless you've got something to put in the game, unless you've got funding. You can't rely on FEMA and the federal government and the state government to fund your beach renewal every year. They're just not going to do it. You have to show that you've got something in the game yourself. So that was in the back of our minds as we addressed the beach management plan as we were putting it together. And we've come a long way now. We've been replenishing the dune regularly. I think you all know the $25 million we spent to do the 6 cubic yards of sand up and down the whole beach. 6 cubic yards of sand for every foot of beach up and down the whole beach. And that was successful. But that's not enough to save marine land acres, for instance, or not enough to save any of the beach communities. And if we get a big storm, the C section and the F section in Palm Coast are going to flood. And the homes along the intercoastal are all going to flood. And that's not our determination. That's NOAA. Their charts show that. So we're putting all this together and trying to figure out what to do. And so now we've got a plan. We know what we're going to do. We've got a plan to get it done. We know how to fund it and take care of it. But we need some help, and that's why we're doing this meeting. We need some help. If we have to do it ourselves, we'll do it. But that's not fair. Andy?
All right, thank you, sir. So we're going to talk a little bit about how the benefits of the beach renourishment, try to make sure everybody has some of the most current facts, and really want to push the point home that the beach is really the identity. Flagler County is the beach. The beach is one of the most important iconic features of the county. I make reference to, other than agriculture, right? So on the west side, farming and agriculture is the identity. Potatoes don't care if they're grown next to the beach or not. So agriculture is the western identity, but everything to the east of the county is really anchored by the identity of the beach to Flagler County. We're a coastal community. We have the shortest distance from I-95 to the beach, the shortest distance from anywhere on I-95 up and down Florida. So it is really what has generated the growth here in Flagler County. Even ITT's master plan, had different components in it. They had the Sheraton and the boat to get to the Sheraton. So the Sheraton was part of the draw in addition to the waterways and golf. But I think as a community, as a county community, we all need to understand the importance of the beach to each of us, from Bunnell to Palm Coast and then out to the Barrier Islands. It's integral to who we are, and we need to do what we can as a group to ensure the success. And we'll go through some of those reasons of why it's important. So we've identified one is the shoreline protection, right? It helps preserve and protect us from storm surge impacts and minimize infrastructure damage. Environmental benefits are many. We've seen what happens when dune breaches and salt water intrudes into the environment. The area right across from Washington Oaks, the entire tree canopy died out when that was inundated with seawater. Bigger breaches can, think of the hammock and the heavy oak canopy. Big dune breaches can impact that entire ecosystem and affect property values in the hammock and other places. It's an economic driver, the economic value for tourism and preservation of property values. Up the Barrier Island is the single biggest area of tax revenue for the county. Protection isn't just protecting that one house that may be on the dune line, but it's protecting the communities that are up and down the Barrier Island, protecting those tax revenue generators, those homes, helps us offset the other areas within the county. And it's important to recognize that. Climate change resilience, we need to be adaptable to sea level rise and the increased storm intensity. I know personally, we've not just got the storm surge from the beach, but any breaches that are created also impact the intercoastal waterway and the adjacent homes that feed off of the intercoastal. So obviously we have a breach up at Matanzas Inlet. It's a natural breach. But breaches that can occur in other areas of the coast would exacerbate that internal flooding, if you will, and create damage that's unforeseen to the coast, to the fresh water, to the canal systems, and people that live up and down the intercoastal. It creates public well-being, quality of life for public access, recreation to the beach. So the beach, as we've stated, supports tourism, which is an economic driver in the county. It also protects the critical infrastructure, being A1A, which has limited access to the Barrier Islands. So residents up there are pretty much dependent on A1A. And we've talked about the benefits of the countywide, the community-wide benefits. Talked a little bit about the taxable property values, significant impacts to the Barrier Island over long periods of time can hamper the county with reductions in overall property values. It would have a terrible impact to a lot of our other services. So we're trying to, through this beach nourishment, make sure that we protect property values up and down the coast. And this process isn't cheap. There's been millions of dollars that have been spent and millions of dollars that will be spent. So we have to wrap our heads around the the dollar figures and the benefit. So is it worth some of these? Right now, the federal government, the state has supplied a lot of money, but as Commissioner Hansen said, we can't rely. It is not a sound strategic plan to rely on outside sources. We have to be able to be dependent upon funding a lot of these ourselves, and as we get federal funds, those will help us, give us some more flexibility. But we can't, it's not a good strategic plan to rely on those grants. We've seen even changes at the federal government with an election, things can change. Army Corps has backed up our renourishment, so intervals, 6-year intervals now is the plan for renourishments, and they are kicking in half of those named storms. The Army Corps will renourish 100%. But I think even as we've seen with changes in the federal government in the last couple of weeks, some of those things may not be so secure after all. But so we have to work on this on ourselves and make sure we do what we can locally. So we've got available funding mechanisms that all of us have at our hands. Our local government revenue, which is property taxes, existing sales taxes, the tourist development tax, state and federal grants. So we've already talked a little bit about through the state and through the federal government. Special assessments and districts. We've done a lot of research looking at how other communities are doing this, and special assessments and special taxing districts is one way that other communities have helped fund renourishment. And then user fees and permits, probably not as big of a dollar amount, but those can also be used by local governments to be able to offset some of these costs. So really, in conclusion of this, right, Flagler County has taken a proactive approach, as Commissioner Hansen said, basically since Matthew, to put together the beach management plan and commit to protecting the coastline. By integrating scientific research, community engagement, and strategic implementation, the county is working to preserve its natural resources, safeguard infrastructure, and enhance the quality of life for residents and visitors. And if you go back to when, I guess back in the late summer, we had a public meeting, a workshop where we had a consultant talk about doing surveys, and they did some surveys to the community. And we had to take a step back after that because as things tend to do, there was a lot of immediate backlash to those surveys and to the approach. So we said we were going to step back and do a more strategic outreach with the residents. So the county really could only work with our unincorporated residents and property owners. So we spent the last few months doing a lot of data analysis, sharing with the public the costs and different plans. And the county basically put together a plan to where we can renourish and maintain the unincorporated parts of the county. So it includes a lot of the different things that we mentioned, the different types of revenues. But that's not the holistic approach that I talked about at the beginning. That's a piecemeal approach that only protects certain areas of the community. Unincorporated county is just a portion, mainly up in the Hammock, from just south of Marineland down to Painter's Hill. And our residents up there are behind us in knowing the importance of renourishment and protection. So what we've come today really to do is talk about your thoughts on moving forward. There's 2 steps. And once we've done the renourishment, the Army Corps permit requires maintenance. So our ask today is, do you have a maintenance plan for those, City of Flagler Beach and Beverly Beach? Do you have a maintenance plan? I guess in Marineland as well. We have expertise on staff to be able to help. If you don't have a maintenance plan, just reach out and ask the county. We have an engineer on staff that's a beach engineer. and we can help with that, at least make sure that we're compliant with the Army Corps permit on maintenance. And then there's been a lot of talk about the ongoing renourishment costs. And it's been talked in the past. Jason from the Army Corps, I know Commissioner Spradley and former Commissioner O'Brien in different meetings have talked about not wanting to commit boards, commissions to a 50-year cost burden. So the Army Corps made it clear that the renourishment costs are not mandatory. The maintenance is mandatory, but they understood it was a big ask to commit to a 50-year plan on renourishment. And they clarified that it's not required. The problem is you do all this $1 million of work, and there's a plan, a scientific plan in place that shows how renourishments continue to add to the depth of the beach and continue to push the shelf out into the ocean, which is what helps break up the energy of the waves and the increased storm surge during storm events. So as we continue to add renourishments, it helps protect and harden the beach even more. So the other part that we've come, at least from the county's point of view, is to ask about renourishment. We need to hear from our coastal barrier island communities if you're committing to renourishment. If you've thought about that or what the costs are, because we can, again, our expertise, we can tell you what the nourishment costs will be and how you can plan for that. If you want to be a part of the county's plan, the plans that we've put forth, which has different funding mechanisms, special taxing districts, the benefit unit, those are dedicated funds from millage. Those are things that we can share, but we don't necessarily want to go out on our own. We think this is a community-wide effort from Bunnell, Flagler Beach, Beverly Beach, Palm Coast. All of us together need to make this beach nourishment work. And so the conversation now is are you willing to assist in this to make it a countywide effort, so that we aren't going out on our own just to protect the unincorporated. So I've said enough. Sorry for taking time to bring us up to speed on that, but this is a really informal. I know I've talked to a couple. We've got, I think 7 o'clock was something that we looked at for a time frame for tonight. We may not get to every agenda item by 7 o'clock, but we'll do our best. But very informal conversations. I have to look left and right to recognize everybody, but if you wanted to, I'll open the floor at this point, so just shout and gain my attention and you'll get the floor. Mr. Spradley.
I think that, it's unequivocal that Flagler Beach recognizes its obligation for the maintenance part of renourishment. But the first question is, does Flagler Beach support renourishment? And, the obvious answer would be yes. There's all of the factors that are involved in that. We're anxious to discuss the different funding mechanisms and things such as that. And we know that we're bound to provide maintenance. And I know, without going into details of what that maintenance plan would be, it does exist, would provide for escarpment damage to be repaired. That may require purchasing new equipment, but these are all ongoing topics that are being discussed when it comes to the maintenance side of it.
Yeah, to piggyback off of Commissioner Spradley, I think as you mentioned earlier, it's going to take a community effort. And with a community effort, that takes the whole community. And I think there's some data that's really important for everybody to know on the record here that, you mentioned here special assessments and districts and taxing, maybe based on the locality to the beach. However, I think it's, again, important to know the data. Based on the records here, we show that 72% of the beachgoers in Flagler County are residents of Palm Coast. So I believe that, if we're going to have as Commissioner Spradley said, we do want to be a part of this, but also we want to make sure everybody is paying their fair share into this, because it's not just a Beverly Beach, Marineland, Flagler Beach, and unincorporated parts of the Hammock to burden these costs. Again, the data shows it, and I think, as we know, Bunnell will probably overtake us in the near future with the rapid development that's going to be taking place out west as well.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Gary Inks, Marineland. We're a very small community. We've got a great beach. I'm questioning what this renourishment incorporates. I mean, if it's something that's required, okay, it's mandatory after the beach has been replaced, what exactly are we talking about, renourishment?
Okay, so somebody from staff may want to, I know your instance and Marineland's instance is unique and different. I'm not quite sure if it applies specifically to Marineland, some of these things, because of the infrastructure that you've already have established. So I might have to ask for that clarification from staff. But the initial beach renourishment, as we witnessed in Flagler Beach, pushes the beach farther out into the ocean, so you have a wider shelf for the beach. Goes back to the historical pictures that we all see of the wide beach. What we've learned through the science and from the engineers is that different storm events over the next 6 years, if there's no hurricanes, just regular storm events will start shifting the sands around that have been placed in that initial renourishment. The Army Corps is estimating that 6-year timeline will be necessary to go back out and renourish again. And the data that has been shared with me is the first 2 renourishments after the initial one are really critical in helping fortify for a long time, fortifying the beach. In your instance, I don't know that we go up, how far we go up to with the renourishment, so I'd have to defer to staff.
Well, it's part of Reach 4.
Okay.
But your main concern for you guys and the funding is the maintenance. That every year there's a maintenance that you have to do on the beach, fixing escarpments and you've got that one area R1 to R3, I think it is up there that might require a little work, like fixing escarpments and things like that. But you don't have much of a area to cover up there. But your responsibility would be the maintenance, and then the replenishment or renourishment is another story. I don't think that affects you that much. That's a big dollar thing that we have to tackle, and some of your stuff up there really only requires dune replenishment, not beach replenishment.
Thank you. It's complicated, I know, and again, we're happy to share the expertise through I know the beach management plan has detailed each, like Commissioner Hanson said, each of the reach, and you're in Reach 4. And it is unique and different because the hardening, you've got the seawall, the rocks, and different things that have been established already there. But I appreciate Flagler Beach. Thank you for that input. And anybody else want to jump into this? You go ahead and state your name.
Mayor Emmett. I've lived on the beach, not directly, but 5-10 minutes away from it, for 25 years. I have watched that ocean. What?
Speak into the microphone. Speak into the microphone. Speak into the microphone.
I'm sorry.
Not that loud, huh?
Okay, let me start over. Mayor Emmett, I have lived on the beach for about 25 years on A1A, right across the street from the beach, 5-minute walk. My 3 commissioners are sitting out here. and one sitting right here. They've all lived there for a long period of time. Our tax base, valerium tax for the properties is $120 million on 1 mile and 2/10 of property. This thing is not going to like. When you talk about beach maintenance, the beach maintains itself. It gives and it takes. These storms we've had, I don't know how many, I can't even remember. Yes, we have the hurricanes, we have the damage, we have the floods, and we always recover from it. One way or another, we get through it. We got 4 walkovers in the town of Beverly Beach, 1 handicap walkover. The last storm that we had, we replaced it at $41,000. And every time we replace another walkover, it's $2,000 to $4,000. So there's that cost and there's that expense that we, the town, pay. The reason I'm talking this way is I'm looking down here on the agenda where it's talking about taxation. I will tell you right up front, I have talked to my commissioners, I have talked to the residents of my town, and taxes do not cut it. You will never control nature. Man cannot control it. The best that you can do is try to survive it and rebuild the best you can. We bought where we live. Nobody told me to buy on the ocean. I did it because I wanted to be next to it. I had an old commissioner that once told me, he said, if you don't like it, move. The bottom line is, we're talking money. We're talking taxes. Our millage rate in the town of Beverly Beach is 1.02. The lowest millage rate in the county, probably in this state. And when you talk taxation on us, I tell you right now, I will not support it, or with the residents of my town. We are married at the hip with Flagler Beach. What affects Flagler Beach affects us. When you talk to Flagler, first off, everybody that uses the beach goes to the ocean. 80% of them aren't from Flagler Beach or Beverly Beach or Marine Land. They're outsiders. The county, the town, the other towns. You go there on a weekend, there's cars parked on both sides of the roads, and you talk to the people, they don't live there. So I guess what I'm saying, if there's going to be a taxation and there's going to be money, I'm not for it. But I can tell you what, the county has a responsibility to the residents over there on the ocean side, because they do, and they pay high taxes. I know you didn't expect me to get up here and be talking this. I support the county. You know we do, right? We're a good town. We've donated to you. It's just, to me, another taxation, another tax. I can't go for it. What do we give back to our people? Taxes. We give them taxes to spend more money on stuff that we don't even need, for God's sakes. When I read it, I was getting upset with it. I have to tell you, and I'll tell you that, people out here. If you live here, you know. Taxes are never the answer. There's other answers out there if people look for them. They can find them. We have 1,600 feet of seawall in our little mile and 2/10 at the north end of the town. At the south end of the town, we have a seawall that protects A1A from being washed out to the ocean. Maintenance, if you watch the ocean, one day you'll go out there and it might be littered up with seaweed and all kinds of good stuff. You go out there the next day and it's clean. It washes and takes care of itself. It's nature. We cannot fight nature. It's that simple. We can do the best we can, but we know where we live. And that's the big point. We live on a barrier island with the ocean on one side of us and the intercoastal on the other side. And we're a small town, and when we get struck, everybody gets out and helps their neighbors pick up the debris and get rid of the aluminum. We work with Flagler Beach. We have a interlocal agreement with Flagler Beach for picking up our garbage, doing our building official duties and inspections. They're great, but they're burdened with the amount of people that show up at their town at any given time. You can see it. They got a big overhead down there. And you can holler at me if I'm talking in place of you, whatever. I'm just trying to say that we love Flagler Beach. You've been very good to us over the years, right? And we'll stand by you and do whatever you think is necessary to help. But beach maintenance, what do you maintain? Sand? Comes and it goes. Stand there and watch. Okay, you have anything to say?
Jeff Skytema, Vice Mayor of Beverly Beach. I agree with Flagler Beach on a survey because we had some controversy at one time, which, we'd never have it. But we did a survey of the beach goers and how much our walkover 4 was being used. Well, 70% of the beachgoers were from Grinnell, Palm Coast, or out of state. And the rest 30 was maybe Beverly Beach. We couldn't get it all. That's in 1.2 miles. So, we're not bucking the county. We want to work with the county, but maintenance-wise, we have beach walkovers, and we have 4. And I think Flagler Beach has 50. This is a very, very big expense for Flagler Beach, and it's a big expense for us because we strive on lowering our taxes, and that's the way we want to keep it. Small town with a big heart. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I will say, in regards to fighting Mother Nature, I think what we're trying to do is mitigate some of the more damaging effects of Mother Nature. And there's been plenty of examples to support that, at least this plan that's, designed, the engineered dune system designed by the state and the additional beach nourishment, and recreation is part of it, where nobody's, we're not denying the fact that the beach is heavily used by residents throughout the county and from outside the county. Tourism is a huge part of the economic engine, that for the people that do come out and visit. But, I think the maintenance component is specified and identified through the Army Corps. So we have to meet the requirements of the Army Corps for maintenance. I think Commissioner Hansen talked about as the nourishment washes away, you have these escarpments, and those have to be maintained and worked so that over time, they are best handled. But it's, obviously, as we continue to go back with additional nourishments at the intervals stipulated by the Army Corps, those do require additional funds, and part of what we've gone through this process is trying to figure out ways to pay for that. The other option is nothing. I mean, the Army Corps has stated, you can be a one and done. But I worry if you do a one and done, we had federal and state money that paid in almost entirely for that first stage of nourishment. You do the one and done, and you may lose that partner in the future. So that has to be part of what we're, in the back of our minds as well. So let me talk down here. I know we've got Barrier Island and County, and then City of Bunnell, Palm Coast on this end. Really what we're just asking at this point is you don't have maintenance to worry about. It's really the contributions that we talked about earlier that are countywide, that are benefit, our municipalities as coastal communities. And if there's ways that we can, you can go back to your commissions to see if there's, or councils to see if there's appetites for helping the county put together this nourishment plan.
Commissioner Dance, Mike Norris, Palm Coast Mayor. This has been floated for a while now. I remember back a few months ago, or during the campaign, it's a lifetime ago, but the prospect of a phased-in approach, the closer you live to the beach, the more you pay. and I think you guys were looking for consensus as far as funding. I do agree that Palm Coast is the largest city within the county, and everything that Palm Coast does affects the rest of the county. But currently, we are facing a water crisis in our city. And for me to go back to my residents and say, here's another fee, here's another tax, I don't see that in our future. Right now, we contribute, if I'm not mistaken, 44 to 45 cents of every dollar that comes into our city goes to the county. And I think that's quite lopsided. The largest tax revenue as far as the TDC is concerned, from the best of my knowledge, comes from Hammock Dunes Beach Resort. The city, since the TDC, in the history that I've found, the history of the TDC, the city of Palm Coast has only received $464,000 from the TDC over a 13-year period. I think that's quite lopsided. Holistic approach, and I hate the word fair, because life's not fair. We are not a beach city, and it's hard. I'd be hard pressed to go back to my city council and say, here's another fee we want to tack on you. It's not. I did not draw the boundary lines and the city boundaries within this county, but I will say that it's a gerrymandered county. All those residents on that barrier island from the north end of the city of Palm Coast city limits to the south end are excluded from our city taxes. We don't get any revenue generation from that, and they use all of our resources to include our water. So I would be hard-pressed to go back to my city council and say, I want to add a user fee for the beaches. I know that the county asked for $29 million in the last legislative session and didn't get a penny of it for beach renourishment. So when it comes to holistic, I'd gladly contribute to beach renourishment if we ungerrymandered our county and include that barrier island in my city limits so our city residents could benefit from that taxation. I'm a conservative, and I don't want to pay taxes or raise anyone's taxes. But I hate the word fair being used when it comes to this situation.
Okay. Anybody?
Thanks, Mayor Mike. So I just wanted to say that I recognize that the beaches are, as the mayor said, an amenity that everybody within the county uses, and some without the county. As the mayor mentioned, we do have kind of a dichotomy when we talk about usage of the beaches and the cost sharing for that we also provide services that, we bear that cost for and don't receive that income as well from those outside of our city limits. So I agree wholeheartedly with that. I know we're all facing funding issues right now. We have a lot of problems that we need to fix as a city as well. So I do look forward to continuing this conversation and trying to find a way to work together to make sure that beach is taken care of. I think at a minimum, we would have to talk about it and workshop it within the city and see what that appetite is for the residents. I can tell you that I don't think there will be a huge appetite for it, but we could bring it to them, our residents, and ask and bring that back to you.
Right. I think at this point, the ask is, we've identified another meeting date in March, and I think the ask is that everybody take it back to their, right, you're 2 out of the 5, and there's some additional information that can be shared so that everybody, can have that discussion. So the city residents can have an opportunity to weigh in, and you guys will have, additional information at your hands that we can give you on, that we've put together at least on the importance of the preservation of the beach and the nourishment from a countywide perspective. It's tough. I mean, none of these decisions are easy. We're all dealing with the same issues. So it's, I'll leave it at that, because we've, even in Bunnell, you've got some growth issues, but you have some of the same problems that a lot of the other, municipalities do with infrastructure. So it's, All we're asking is to go bring the ask back to your board and see if there is an appetite to further this discussion amongst yourselves.
I have no problem bringing it back to the board. I can tell you their appetite will be probably fasting, but I'll bring it back to them and see. You know, we have about 3,500 people in the city of Bunnell, and I don't know how many of them go to the beach, but certainly the beach is part of the county and is part of a calling card and an identity for the county. So, you know, I certainly understand that, and we'll put it on the agenda and see how it flies.
Okay, and again, we'll be more than happy to make sure that, you know, the material that your board gets is, you know, is detailed and with information that we can at least share. So I appreciate that.
Sure.
Commissioner Spradley.
Yeah, I just want to echo a couple things and that Mayor Norris had to say, and as unappetizing as bringing back the suggestion of a tax would be to Palm Coast, is no more appetizing to Flagler Beach. I mean, if this were an easy problem to work through, we wouldn't be sitting here right now. And no one likes the idea of additional expense to maintain what we have and have had forever. My point is just that, you know, as Chair Dance had to say, the beach is arguably the most important asset in the county. The barrier island is the largest source of tax revenue for the county. Tourism, it begins with the beach. And then, of course, the property values that are there ties into all of that. So I say that just as a general remark that, yeah, there is reason to look to assistance to the county. And just because it's called Flagler Beach doesn't mean that it is an asset that is only used by Flagler Beach. It's far from it. So, so we're, you know, optimistic that as we work through this, we'll see the various options for funding, and the word apportionment comes into mind about how best our partners here can help out in maintaining that beach, which is a critical county asset. Thank you.
Thank you. Final bite at this apple? Anybody? Commissioner Hanson?
No, I would just encourage everybody to, I heard a couple comments that I didn't particularly care for. I don't think you should be closed-minded on this issue, that it does need discussing. And as I said, we have a plan to go forward without any help at all. And we can do that. It's kind of hard to swallow, but we can do that. But it really is something that the whole county should participate in, and we have a plan, and it's not raising your taxes. I'm talking raise your taxes. We're not going to raise your taxes, but we have a plan to make this all happen without raising your taxes. So I just encourage you not to leave this room saying, I'm not going to do it. I think you should go leave this room and saying, well, let's see what they have to say. Let's see what the plan looks like. Okay? Thank you.
It's not time yet, but you'll have time, but at the end of the meeting. But the county has had, if you've lived in the Barrier Island, the county has had a number of meetings from last August through December, public meetings for the unincorporated residents that live in the Barrier Island. Well, and again, if for the unincorporated, right, it's specifically geared toward the residents that are in the unincorporated area.
I'll wait.
Thank you.
I'm going to tell you, I have a 1,700 square foot house on a quarter acre, and I'm paying. Taxes being talked about.
Nobody online can hear you, so
Yeah.
it's
Wait till your turn to come up
We hear you,
here.
but if you want to make a, okay.
I hear contradictions going on, and
Okay. Okay. All right. all good down there. Okay, very good. We will move on in the agenda. So I'm going to ask for I know these are countywide issues. Flooding, I think, was brought up when Commissioner Sullivan was at the last meeting, and I didn't know if we had bullet points on the flooding issue, or we're just gonna. Well, I know that from the county standpoint, flooding has been a severe issue countywide. A lot of our issues are on the west side, and we're taking steps to address flooding on the west side, where we've got impacted canals, and we've put together a pretty good plan to address some of those issues on the west side. I'll leave this open if anybody wanted to speak specifically to flooding issues and that may affect the other municipalities that are here. So I'll leave the floor open for anybody that wanted to speak to flooding. Mayor Robinson.
I'd like a copy of what the plan is on the west side for those impacted canals.
Okay,
What your plan is.
sure, absolutely.
Because we are trying to develop some plans as well with,
Can you speak in?
sorry.
That's
I'm
okay.
looking at you, and we're also looking at the stormwater and the flooding and, Dean Road and that area there. And so some of that does get impacted by canals in the county. So I'd be interested to see what your plan is.
Okay, I'll make that request to the back. Maybe we spend a few minutes at one of your meeting during presentation time.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
All right, great. Yes, sir.
Gary Inks, Mayor, Marineland. In the last hurricane, we had some flooding in the River to Sea Preserve. The problem that occurred was FEMA hired a contractor to come in and drain the flooded area from the river to sea and sends the water from that area over the river to sea land into the intercoastal. Who would have control over that organization, either FEMA or private contractors who are dealing with flooding and they don't tell you what they're doing?
I don't know that I have the answer to that. We can get back with you on that. We can have our emergency management or engineering get back with you, but I can't answer that right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
James Sherman, Flagler Beach. Yes, I think this is a countywide thing that I've brought up several times in our commission meetings, and I think that we could all benefit as a county if we maybe potentially came together and started looking at issues with the intercoastal waterway. I think that is probably one of our biggest issue in Flagler Beach is when we have flooding. Yes, we have stormwater issues that we're addressing. However, our biggest problem is when these named storms come in, or even just nor'easters. It's the intercoastal waterway, and I think the intercoastal waterway is something that impacts every municipality up here. So I'd like to see if there's any appetite for us jointly as a county to come together and begin looking at ways to mitigate the intercoastal waterway.
Well, I will say, and a great intro for the next the next bit of information, but through the Northeast Florida Regional Council over the past year, they've taken time to work on what they call a compound flooding study. So it takes into account rainfall events, king tides, all of the different potential impacts to the intercoastal waterway and the inland canals. So that's been complete, and we'll make sure that we share that with everybody because it's an important tool to be able to use when you go to apply for grants. A lot of the grants will have a box that you need to check and says, has your request been verified by an independent third-party study or an analysis? And that's where this study can be effective when you go out for grants. So whether it's, again, resiliency, where there's a ton of money at the state level in grants, it's this type of study that can help everybody here at the table. And that just hot off the presses, just completed, we'll make sure that study gets to everybody. But good question about the waterway and the flooding. So that can help. Yes?
Hey, Vice Mayor Dewey from Marineland. And so we're just getting ready to seek proposals to create our master stormwater management plan. And Commissioner Hanson helped us authorize the use of the CRA money. And so when we get feedback from Mayor Ink's question from the county, we just kind of, because what we're doing is we're basing our plan off of Bunnell's stormwater management plan. And so obviously it's not that large of a project compared to Bunnell. But the idea is we want to be able to, set this up for years to come, working with some of the county's contractors. And so definitely wanted to just follow up in general with the mayor's feedback.
Okay, so specifically, what's the ask? What do you need from us?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to state that we're in the process of seeking proposals to create the management plan.
Okay, very good. I just wanted to make sure if there was something you needed that the county could help, that we made sure I took note of that.
No, we gave him the money.
Okay, very good. So we helped. All right, very good. Anything Palm Coast on flooding issues?
Yes, Commissioner Dance, Mike Norris, Palm Coast Mayor. Something I've discussed with my staff and something that was part of me coming into office was talking about a unified seawall standard. In our city, one of our main issues in the C-section is that sediment runoff from vacant lots and dilapidated seawalls. And I would like to see if we could, my ask would be if we could get together with county administrators and try to come up with a unified seawall standard. And because my intent is to push forward with mandating seawalls on all vacant lots within our canals, because I don't see there's any reason for us to stand up a dredging crew to maintain the canals, which we're responsible for, until we have seawalls on all those vacant lots to keep the damage from happening to other residents in the community, not to mention the sediment runoff. So that's something I would like to explore with the county. Thank you, sir.
Okay. I don't know too much of the overlap. I know we would have intercoastal seawalls, which may have different engineering parameters or designs that may not correlate to the inland ones. But by all means, we can. I think our staffs work well together. So if there's any way that we can help with that, by all means. Yes, sir. Thank you. Okay. Okay, second item is impact fees for roadways. This is a county issue, and it mainly affects, I know the two new developments that are out there, the annexation of Veranda Bay, the Bunnell's Hawk Creek, but also the expansion of development on Colbert. From the county standpoint, it exacerbates a problem to where municipalities are collecting the impact fees, but the developments are facing county roads, and the impacts are being felt on the county roads, and we need a better interlocal agreement or some sharing of when those developments come up to make sure that the improvements, the impact fees are being directed to help and benefit the roadways where the developments are impacting. So in Bunnell's standpoint, the new development is Bunnell collects impact fees for traffic impacts, but the main two roads that the new development is going to impact is 11 and 100, and then the roads as they fan out. So Bunnell will be collecting those impact fees, but then the maintenance and any other improvements are falling on the county. So we have to have a discussion about, and I know in Veranda Bay we talked about the city taking ownership of a section that was going to be entirely surrounded by Veranda Bay, and that helps alleviate one of those concerns. But with this is mainly for the three, Palm Coast as well. Flagler Beach has to enact an impact fee for transportation. Otherwise, I'm not quite sure how that works if without you having one enacted. But that's another issue that with Veranda Bay that we look at because there are, and that's really a microcosm of the three different government agencies coming together at one point at John Anderson, 100, Colbert, and Roberts Road, all feeding into that one spot that needs. And I think we do. Mr. Sherman mentioned a TPO study for Roberts and John Anderson and 100. That was on the last TPO agenda. So those are areas where these meetings were really designed for, is where we all come together and can help solve, for this one, infrastructure problems right on the edges of all three of us. So I wanted to get that out there. If you've got questions about that, again, it's one of those coordination issues where we need to just get our concerns out there so we can have constructive dialogue and conversation. And as you move forward with your plans, as I look to Mayor Robinson to approve that other one, that plus the fire services are significant issues that the county has raised in the past, and just want to, between those things that will affect us moving forward as 8,000 more residents move into Bunnell.
Well, it hasn't been approved yet, and we're still contemplating some of the replies on some of the state organizations, FDOT being one of them, because we have a concern also about the traffic and the impending traffic on those two roads and other roads in Bunnell. So that has not been on our agenda to start that process past where we are right now. We're working through the PUD, working through the developer agreement, and we've met with DOT several times regarding those roads and how that's going to be mitigated just for the traffic sense, never mind the impact fees. So we're certainly willing to sit down and talk about it because it is county roads, and we understand that.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Before I move on, any other points of conversation on roadways? Commissioner Hanson?
Well, I just think that the takeaway here is we need to sit down with Palm Coast and with Flagler Beach and get interlocals established so that we can get our share of the impact fees, because we have to maintain those roads. But so that's in the future, but it's something we got to get done.
And I think staff at the administration level, these conversations are going on, but this format helps us air these publicly so that the rest of our commissions and councils will understand some of the issues that will be coming toward them as we finalize some of these issues and further hash them out behind the scenes before they come to you. But if you have any questions on these things, go back to your staff and ask about, these issues were raised at the joint meeting, and can you fill me in? I think that would be helpful too, to get some of that background data for you. All right, the third item is the airport overlay ordinance. I'm going to look to Mr. Moylan. Do we have any points of discussion for this from staff? I don't have the ordinance in front of me.
If I could, Chair Dance, very briefly, just go back to the previous item for a point before.
Sure,
before
absolutely.
we move on.
Feel free to, if you want to add something during the discussion, just.
Yeah, I would like to on that issue of roadway impact fees. It's not so much for maintenance as it is to create capacity generated by growth. And if the municipalities don't want to have just a wide open blanket interlocal, they can be targeted to specific areas. There has been talk, for instance, among the staff of the county and Palm Coast, whereby the county would transfer transportation impact fees to the city of Palm Coast to deal with the intersection of State Road 100 and Seminole Woods Parkway. We haven't drafted, or I don't believe there's a draft. It hasn't been approved yet, but that is the intent. And the same thing could happen in other instances like the roadways that you mentioned. The impacts of the development, might be approved in a municipality, but if it's impacting a county road, we might have to create turn lanes or some sort of capacity, and that would be the intent behind that. As far as the airport overlay ordinance, this is a statutory requirement. The county has advertised, I believe it will be brought to the county commission for approval in March. And what it does is it prohibits the building of structures or things that would potentially create a dangerous situation going outward from the runway. So you wouldn't want to have a tall hotel at the end of your runway. I have distributed the draft ordinance to your various legal, your attorneys for their consideration. One way to do it would be to have everyone adopt an identical ordinance in their jurisdiction. The operative language of the ordinance would be identical all the way around. If your attorneys prefer, we could just allow the county ordinance to be effective within those municipalities that are affected. I believe we're talking here about Palm Coast and Bunnell. I think Flagler Beach is outside of the range of any impacts that could hurt an airplane. So it's really Bunnell and Palm Coast that I'm speaking to. Your attorneys have the ordinance, and they need to decide if you want to adopt that ordinance, give us feedback or comments on the ordinance, or just allow ours to control even within your boundaries.
Okay, and so as moving forward, we will workshop this, and I believe in March before we have it for first reading, right, for the ordinance. I think I'll look to the back, but the plan was to have it workshop first and then go to the meeting.
Okay, yeah, I didn't put out the legal ad, so I'm
Yeah.
not sure about the meeting, the schedule, but it's coming soon.
Right. And I think the commission gave the deadline to have it approved in March.
One thing I would like to let everyone know, this, as I said, it's about structures and hazards for airplanes. This is not going to solve the problem of noise from the engines of airplanes. That is we all know that the concerns of the community that we hear a lot. This ordinance is more about physical structures in the way of airplanes.
Okay. Any questions on that from? Okay, good. You guys do want to go home early. The last one, I think we had questions on annexation. This was geared toward Veranda Bay and City of Flagler Beach. And it was about the enclaves, and then the Veranda Bay was delayed with a threat of a lawsuit over the enclave. So, Commissioner Spradley, would you want to bring us up to speed on that?
Sure, Commissioner. The Veranda Bay was scheduled for a second reading and possible vote on annexation for January 23rd. And a few weeks before, the city received a legal threat that if we annexed in, if that was the path that we took, then there would be a lawsuit concerning something called enclaves, which is basically an annexation of property that within it is a totally surrounded piece of property that is not included in the annexation. So we chose at that time, and also what would happen is the lawsuit, were it filed, were we to annex Veranda Bay, and were there to be a lawsuit, the city of Flagler Beach would be the defendant. So the view of our commission that evening was we didn't feel comfortable signing on to litigation is what we felt would happen if we were to vote and if we were to approve, even if it's meritorious defense that could be raised. So as a consequence, the developer for Veranda Bay withdrew the annexation request that evening. And since then, it's my understanding that in the background, the lawyers and the parties are trying to resolve the issue itself, the enclave issue, but it's presently not even on the agenda. I mean, the next move will need to be made by the developer, And that is if they come to a point they're comfortable, they've resolved the enclave issue, then they'll probably file an amended request for annexation, and then it'll come before us. But as of today, there's nothing before the city of Flagler Beach to consider about Veranda Bay.
Okay. And again, I think this was added, we had residents on John Anderson, county residents that were in fear of being forced to annex in. So this will help alleviate some of those concerns if the strategy is to modify the annexation to avoid that, then that takes care of the issue that was brought to us from the county residents. Commissioner Hanson, did you have anything to add?
No, I think we just have to wait and see what happens.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, great.
Chair Dance?
Yes, sir.
If I may, with the annexation, so what the developer there in Flagler Beach decide, that's we'll have to just wait and see. There is a single enclave that would have been created in that situation. However, the statute actually prohibits annexations that create enclaves, plural, not a single one, and the case law and the definitions in the statute support that. But I do understand the city not wanting to get in a lawsuit even if they were victorious, because, you know, you want to avoid litigation at all costs. But more generally about annexation, the county has grown. The developable lands are getting less and less, and so the issue is different now. In the past, we've taken a very laissez-faire kind of approach to this and said, you know, if a landowner wants to be part of a city, why should we get in the way? And we've never raised any objections. However, we've never gone about it the right way. The cities are not doing annexations according to the statutes, and no one's ever objected. So I'm not blaming. I'm not saying they're at fault. But I think we've reached a point now where, if you're considering a major annexation, in particular, a large tract of land, an entire future subdivision, we really should follow the statutory procedures. You should have a plan, a feasibility study that you provide the county. This is per statute, a feasibility study showing how you're going to provide water and sewer, how it will be funded, and the timing. You have to show how municipal services will be provided to those areas in a way that is substantially similar to how you provide services to your existing residents. This is all required under Florida law, and we've never done it. But we've reached a point now where infrastructure is being strained. We all are experiencing that and trying to solve, how do we fix this? How do we fund these, expansion of the capacity of our infrastructure? And it's time to do it the right way. I wanted to make sure we got that point across here going forward. And we'll work with you. We will. Our staff and the staff of these municipalities have good relationships, and we all are here to work for the public. So let's just focus on that and renew our efforts into how we go about these annexations. And then one final point is we have municipalities that are annexing tree farms, and that's not. The statute requires that what you annex be an area that's developed for urbanized purposes. It's not meant to just sort of land grab. So just keep that in mind when a property owner comes forward and with a proposal in front of you. Make sure what you're looking at is compliant with state law.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions for Mr. Moylan on that? Okay. All right. We'll move on. That does it for our topics. I want to make sure that we go down the line and have time for closing comments before we go to public comment. So starting with Mayor Robinson, did you have any final comments or wanted to bring anything to the next meeting?
No, and certainly I've got some work cut out for me to bring to my board for conversation and discussion.
All right, thank you. Councilman Miller.
Yeah, thank you. So I just wanted to kind of circle back to what we were talking about with beach renourishment. Certainly, I think everything kind of hinges on what that plan is and the funding mechanism for it. I think that's where we find out what our residents' appetite for this is. What is their share and what they would have to pay, whether it's through taxes or if there's another plan in place. So I think that's part of that. In terms of the airport overlay, on its purpose, that it seems completely reasonable to encourage safety. I would bring up we mentioned the noise, so that's something that we have to continue to work with you guys on. We have a lot of residents that are unhappy with that situation, so we'd like to continue working with that, or with you guys on that. And I think that covers everything.
Thank you. I just would add to that the airport master plan analysis, we're updating the master plan, and through that master plan process, we'll have a lot of additional public input through that process. A new noise study will be done, and a specific task force of community members to be able to guide the consultant. So all of that will be available as we move through over the summer, updating the master plan for the airport. Mayor.
No comment, Commissioner.
Okay. Commissioner Hanson?
Just to reinforce that we'll get the renourishment plan out to everybody, so you can take a look and see what your piece of the pie is. Thank you.
Thank you. Flagler Beach, Commissioner Sherman, Spradley.
No, I'm just anxious to receive the documents concerning renourishment, to explore all the various funding options. And, it's been an education just leading up to this, and I've learned a lot today about potential sources for funding for the county to do this. So look forward to that before the time we next meet.
All right, thank you. And any topics? Well, we have time. I think I'll hit the last item, but Beverly Beach, Mayor Emmett.
You're ready for me. I want to tell you something.
Speak into the mic a little bit, please.
I think you'll do a great job. Boy, oh boy. I like you. I think you do a great job, and never fear that Beverly Beach will always be with the county, and we will always do what we think is right with the county and try to help you as best we can. But I have constituents that I answer to, and they are the ones that are number one to me in the town. I would tell you that, how do you control the ocean? Real quick. I'm going to mention something that nobody likes to hear. Seawalls. They don't like to hear it. But that's the answer. We don't lose A1A because of seawalls. And it just works. I've seen it over the years, okay? I know they're saying the turtles and the whales and whatever. Turtles will nest right in front of our seawalls. Okay? They're there. So I've said what I got to say. I'll talk to you later, okay?
Okay, thank you. I will just say that the county doesn't design the beach. We are not the responsible entity that comes up with the plans. Now, through the state, Army Corps, DEP, obviously DOT has a lot of pulls, so they are protecting their infrastructure in that regard and paying entirely for all of that. Our Army Corps has a different approach, and we have nothing but have to follow through with the Army Corps process because they are in charge of that beach. Okay.
The growth that's coming to this county is staggering. You can see it already starting. You go out Route 100 and it looks like Speedway Boulevard down in Daytona. There's going to be a tax base here that's going to be big. So I wouldn't worry about our taxes too much right now, but what's coming to this community and to the county, you are going to be filthy rich, okay?
And there's a whole nother meeting to talk about that. And I think our folks from Palm Coast will tell you that growth doesn't pay for itself. So I think there's a counter argument to that statement. But I appreciate you guys. Mayor Inks.
No additional comments.
And Vice Mayor Dewey, it's a pleasure to see you. And now, by the end of the meeting, I've got you guys down. I know.
Yeah, just
I can call on you now.
Just thanks for having us, and just appreciate everybody's hard work and collaboration.
All right, thank you very much. I've got our staffs have been working on the next meeting, so I can with confidence say that everybody is in agreement on Wednesday, March 12th, 2025 as the next meeting. And it's only so soon, only because, the importance of what we talked about today impacts budgets. We're in the middle of budget cycle and a budget season. So we have urgency to a degree on our sides to be able to formulate a plan moving forward. So within that timeline of us meeting again on March 12th, if you're able to, and if there is a problem with not being able to meet in a workshop and bring some data back to us and meet the March 12th date, let me know. But as I understand, everybody's staff is in alignment with this March 20th on Wednesday, March 12th on Wednesday. And it'll be the same time. It'll be at 5:30. Again, Mr. Moylan, wanted to thank you for clarifying the impact fees. I know I erred in saying maintenance and stuff, but impact fees are entirely for capacity, so I appreciate you clarifying my faux pas on that. We have, I'll give us 30 minutes at the most. We'll put a time limit on public comment that is 10 to 7, so we will open the floor for public comment. Just state your name, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is John Tanner, and I'm the attorney representing the nonprofit Preserve Flagler Beach and Beulah Creek, and that's why I'm here today. Just a couple of quick comments. Chairman Spradley, pardon me, that letter wasn't meant as a threat. It was a friendly heads up. And I think you'd have probably thought less of us if we had let you walk into that and then sued you. So it wasn't intended to be a threatening gesture. It was intended to be a professional, you really don't want to do this, and here's why. And so hope that you can rethink the way you felt about it. That's the way we intended it. Next, on enclaves and the law concerning that, we've not found a single case, not a single case in the state of Florida where the developer has won an enclave suit on the law that we cited in the cases that we sent to you in the letter. So we believe we have a strong position. We hope it never goes to litigation. Good lawyers avoid litigation, and we have a good lawyer, and we're going to do our best to avoid any of that. And just 2 final things. One, I don't know since the history of the pyramids that taxes have ever gone down with population increase. And I don't know that anyone can cite a case where they have. It's something that developers like to say, and perhaps uninformed public officials believe because it sounds like it makes sense. But it just doesn't work. You can take a look at the taxes that have gone up in all of our entities and the population increase, and I doubt if there's one that's breaking even on services. Finally, I want to thank you for taking this up. The annexation issue is troubling to us in particular. This county worked long and hard to work out an agreement with the developer, and the developer finally agreed on a certain number of homes. In fact, he only has 118 left in the development that's in front of him, and now he's asking something in the neighborhood of 2,200 to 2,700. So I think that this idea of rezoning through annexation is not in the best interest of the citizens of the county or of the cities. Thank you very much, gentlemen and ladies, and thank you for your time. God bless all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Gina Weiss, Quail Hollow Community. Flagler Executive Airport Fiscal Reports 2022, the airport operating close to $1 million in the red. Fiscal Report 23 shows the airport operating in the red for close to $2 million. I am requesting for someone on the county seat to take a look and tell us when this airport is in the red and waiting for funding to come in, who pays for the maintenance and operation? Is it the taxpayers? The Airport Overlay Program. This ordinance has been sitting on the county desk since 2023. The city did not support this ordinance back then. Why would they now? The citizens of Palm Coast are pleading with the other towns not to support this ordinance, as it bypasses navigation easements by rezoning and changes land use maps. It leaves your citizens at the mercy of a poorly run, mismanaged airport, compacted with a county administration who has turned a blind eye in the past and not doing their jobs to regulate and control the operations of over 120 student flight school operations yearly. I find this ordinance ironic, since around this is the time we had sent an attorney demand letter to a deed about the county never obtaining navigation easements for the surrounding communities for planes that fly below 500 feet, performing dangerously low touch and goes, which are not takeoff and landings, 24/7, day and night, some going beyond midnight. No radar, no air traffic control after operating hours. A city councilman asked Roy Ziegler at a city meeting last year, "Isn't this dangerous, having all these student flight schools operations without radar?" His response was, "Yes, it is dangerous." Once again, your citizens are pleading, please do not support this ordinance. A government's first job is to protect their citizens, and this ordinance does not allow you to do your job. It's unlawful and unconstitutional. Your citizens are in a lot of danger with the operation of these flight school mills over our homes, businesses, gas station, high school, and hospital. The flight school industry is a billion-dollar industry and operates under LLCs. They have enough money to buy land in a sparsely populated area to train their students. There's also the Aircraft Owners and Pilot Association estimates 50 public use airports yearly, most of them GA airports, go out of business for mismanagement and yearly losses. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Darlene Shelley and Palm Coast. Now is the time to finally take the action required to protect the safety, health, and welfare of the residents of Palm Coast and Flagler County. We have the right to the peaceful enjoyment of our homes, to drink clean water free from lead and contaminants, breathe fresh air that will not make us sick, and enjoy a healthy environment without the constant nuisance noise from training flight schools, stealing our peace, threatening our quality of life, and lowering our home values. As the officials we elected, please act now to protect your residents. Amend the nuisance noise ordinance to include protection from the harmful, repetitive, and unsafe decibels of noise from excessive training flight school aircraft squadrons circling hundreds of times daily over densely populated and noise-sensitive Palm Coast and Flagler County. This simple change, compiled with an update to the outdated 2008 airport rules and regulations, and imposing a unilateral and significant monetary usage fee for low approach and touch-and-go maneuvers on each operation in excess of one takeoff and one landing per day. This will immediately end 90% of the nuisance, noise, pollution, lead, quality of life, safety, health, and welfare concerns caused by excessive training flight school traffic over Palm Coast and Flagler County. I ask you to please consider removing the exemption from Article 3 noise Section 22-53, which exempts, for some reason, number 8, all noises generated by the operation of aircraft under the jurisdiction of the FAA. Why is this included as an exemption? At the request of whom? When the state and local political subdivisions have the responsibility to control the use of local noise sources and the levels of noise that are permitted in their local environs. Other legal aspects to consider: the lack of navigation easements, the lack of reverse condemnation. The question is the airport an enclave? I sincerely ask you to consider protecting the residents and our quality of life, safety, health, and welfare, and consider these suggestions that are simple and would cost next to nothing to implement. Thank you.
Thank you. Good
My name
evening.
is Celia Puglisi. Good evening, Mr. Dance, and thank you to everybody for letting us speak. Okay, I'm a Palm Coast resident since 1991, and I was here in the beginning, I would say 2005, when this council with Mr. Darby, that was the chair, approved some schools to be settled out of the airport, pilot schools. I was the only one here speaking against that, probably, and I said, you're opening a big can of worms. And here we have, in Palm Coast, all of us, enjoying the can of worms. It's really bad. How would you like somebody opening a school in front of your house? The airport was never a problem. Since 91, I'm here, never a problem. The problem are the schools, the thousands of touch and goes. The airport is in the red. The 22 annual report, $1 million in the red. The 23 annual report, almost $2 million in the red. I'm going to go and ask for the 24 report, which is not ready yet. Why do we, the taxpayers of Flagler County, have to endure the nuisance, the danger? There was an airplane lost us a few years ago, one of their Embry-Riddle plane, one of their doors over my C-section, Collingwood, in Palm Coast. Now there is multiplied the danger because the thousands and thousands of these pilots that I'm practicing here, we get nothing out of it. But this lack of safety, the cost. Why the airport? Why are we subsidizing the airport that is in red? I want somebody to look into that. I refuse to subsidize the airport. With all these schools coming here from Embry-Riddle, they come from Daytona Beach, from other airports, because some schools are housed here. This is the problem. And you, the 5 commissioners, have the authority to regulate that. The FAA inspector that we call here for the first time with Ms. Gina Weiss said that. Your 5 commissioners. Mr. Salinas said, well, Celia, if we limit that, we have to give up all the money, the grants the airport got. One other question, how come the airport, our commissioners asked for the airport 6.5 millions, okay, in this year, for a lounge for their pilots, because we cannot buy a ticket to go anywhere. It doesn't benefit us, right? But the city that needs to widen Hawkins Road only gets $500,000 from the FDOT, and you get the FDOT to give you 6.5 million. This airport is a big negative thing in all the people in Palm Coast, and mostly in Flagler County that have complained about that. So we need to start thinking about the residents first. And please do something about regulating the airport. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Commissioner Dance. And Mayor Emmett, I would like you to be in charge of the beach renourishment, because you got the brains. Seawalls, okay? We cannot pay more taxes. I wish the committee would appoint Mr. Mayor Emmett to be in charge of a committee. He's got the spirit and the brains and the wherewithal to get it done. The airport issue. My husband met with Roy Seeger in 2018 when I first ran for county commission. And he asked him, why are you running flight schools when you should be operating FBOs? These are corporations like Mr. Abend who rent out corporate space. They fly in their jets without leaded fuel. They do their repairs. They eat at the restaurants. They stay at the hotels. And they leave. Why does this county not only allow the danger of the flight schools? We don't know who these people are. We're running in the red. We should not be subsidizing the airport at all. If the airport is running in the red, it is time for a forensic audit. It's time to suspend any airport expenditures by Roy Seeger, my husband, who worked on the Concorde, and he's now working on Artemis. He's been in the business for many, many years, said Roy Seeger is an idiot. And building a terminal for flight schools? We don't even know who these pilots are. So we're having lives destroyed. I don't live there, but I live in Flagler County, and the airport is running in the red. And you keep giving Roy Seeger a path to go on. He needs to be fired. If Heidi doesn't fire him, she should be fired. We need a forensic audit. Why is this airport in the red when we could have flight schools and a terminal to entertain the corporate owners who bring their jets here? I think it's despicable, and my heart goes out. My last comment, what kind of FAA idiots? Idiots, what we had in Washington, D.C. FAA flight controllers showed the Tomahawk at 200 feet, and the military said it was at 325. So the FAA are a bunch of idiots also. You need to take control. You need a forensic audit. You need to fire Roy Seeger.
Thank you. Next comment, please.
Good evening. My name is Greg Davis. I'm president of Hammock Dunes Owners Association, HDOA. HDOA is in the county's unincorporated areas. We maintain about 2.3 miles of shoreline within Hammock Dunes Owners Association. We've worked in partnership with the county for the past several years on shoreline matters. We've established a perpetual easement within the county itself, worked very well together. We have spent approximately about $5 million over the past several years on our own and in conjunction with the county on shoreline matters. I want to thank the county for putting together such an outstanding package today. It is thorough, it's complete, et cetera, on shoreline matters. Compliments to the staff and what you've done on that area. The only thing missing in the report is a requirement for a truck sand project that needs to occur before this hurricane season coming up. It's the only thing I saw in the package that needs to be done. I want to touch on three things: 2025 truck sand project, local funding, MSBU, Northern 10 Mile. Also want to touch on the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers 4x4 study, including incidental flooding for both Palm Coast and Marine Land. For 2025 truck sand project, time is of the essence. Flagler County has been in a constant state of emergency since Matthew. It's about 180 months, I think, so it's a long time. Our dunes, since the emergency sand placement a year ago, are in critical state, exacerbated by Milton. A 2025 truck sand project must be sufficient in volume to get us through the next 2 years when Reach 3 engineering study and permits are done and are in place for a 2027 dredge project. It's critical to us right now. We can't go any longer. With regard to the Northern 10 MSBU, the Northern 10 MSBU came about as a result of non-participation by municipalities represented here today with the county. There are billions of dollars of investment in the northern unincorporated areas in our tax base that the county provided in their package, not to mention the substantial part of tax revenue coming from a tourist tax. We cannot delay, we cannot wait. We have to get this done. We need funding, and we need it to happen right now in terms of local funding. It's a requirement both of state and federal grant opportunities. This is the one thing that we can't wait on. We have to get that done. It's something, as far as the MSBU goes, it's something that I support, and I support it very vigorously. I will be going to my Hammock Dunes Owner Association board asking for a resolution at our next board meeting to support that MSBU. I think that's very important we get it done. Also, just very quickly, as far as the 4x4 study that needs to be done, I'm a property owner both at Hammock Dunes and also within the city of Palm Coast, the C-section. I think it's something that needs to get done. I think that as a C-section resident, I've experienced flooding there. I know it's about what happens in the C-section. I'm not asking the city to provide funding for it.
Mr. Davis, we have a lot of people still waiting.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. So anyway, I urge you to do that as well. So I thank you for that. And I'm not in favor of annexation of Hammock Dunes to Palm Coast. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
My name is Margaret Crammy. I am one of the newest residents probably here in Palm Coast. I'm here from South Jersey. I actually drove down last night to get here for this meeting because I was being called names on one of your next door social medias. My husband and I bought in Palm Coast because of the airport. He is a pilot. We land at your airport. We were able to secure a hangar just recently at the airport. I can sit on my lanai in my pool and watch my husband fly over as he lands, and then I know I have to get out of the pool to go pick him up. Your beaches, love your beaches. In the 3 years, I've stepped on them one time. I'm just not used to that thick sand. South Jersey has a beautiful white sand. Your sand's slightly different. But I am one of those 70% who take up the parking spots because we go down there and eat at least 3 times a week. We're not on the beach, but we do spend our money in your towns. We have 5 children. They blessed us with 9 grandchildren. We've been to Marineland in your town. We've had families stay at your RV park at Beverly Beach, beautiful there too. So not necessarily people from Palm Coast hit the beach. We do hit all the other venues that is your tax base. So always keep that in mind that we also spend money in your town, not just utilize your beach. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep
Welcome.
the airport.
Welcome to Flagler and Palm Coast.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
My name is Steve Davis. I live in what's called Painters Hill, the area between Varn Park and Beverly Beach. Last week, those of us living in Painters Hill received a letter requesting attendance at an FDEP meeting on February 20th. The topic is a perpetual easement to establish an erosion control line for Reach 2 and a permit for the dredge project in 2025. I appreciate this county effort and support it strongly. I also request that the perpetual easement wording be done carefully to align with all procedures to be eligible for FEMA, Army Corps, state grants, and emergency declarations. We're counting on a substantial volume dredge project for Reach 2. The Reach 1 project in 2024 in Flagler Beach averaged about 100 cubic yards per lineal foot. We may need something similar. During the recent January 21st nor'easter, the already eroded beach in front of my house, I live on the beach behind the seawall, was eroded by an additional 4 feet, exposing about 10 feet of our 16-foot seawall. Only 6 feet remained in the sand. Any additional erosion could cause the seawall to fail. I fear a major named storm without a major dredge project. A third of the properties in Painters Hill now have seawalls. These seawalls are subject to similar failure if the beach elevation is eroded to where the bottom of the wall is exposed similarly. 2/3 of the houses are without seawalls, with major structural risk without a large volume dredge project. 8 houses nearly tumbled into the beach or onto the beach after Matthew, and all were condemned. I support adding to the existing beach access points to comply with Army Corps requirements for shoreline access and arguing with DEP for critically eroded beach designation for better funding. I support expanding the Army Corps project in Flagler Beach from the original 2.6 miles to the entire area between the north and south secant seawalls with 50-year Army Corps appropriation. This might require Flagler Beach to act as the local sponsor instead of Flagler County, possibly with DOT for the entire area of Flagler Beach. Local funding is required for the next nourishment. Painters Hill needs beaches north and south to be managed and protected. If Flagler Beach is not willing to support beach nourishment with local funds, I encourage the county to focus all of its attention to the north and let Flagler Beach work out its problems with DOT and the Army Corps at its own pace and with whatever urgency they feel is appropriate. Painters Hill does not have DOT to help with its funding. The N10 MSBU is critical in the north, and we're willing to support it with local funding. Painters Hill and the N10 MSBU areas cannot afford to wait.
Thank you. Great timing. All right, with 5 minutes left.
Steve Dowling, real quick. I think the money part is the big thing on the beach renourishment, which is what you should have to come with. But you really, several things, like the profit makers, the people that are building the 400 houses and the 2,400 houses and the 5,000 houses, you need the money up front. You need to get money from them. They're going to make $50,000 a house, $100,000 a house. Make them give you a chunk and then invest it. That'd be one of them. Because all these profit makers, they're not going to pay if you're going to tax somebody that has a house on the island. They're already going to make their money and leave. You got to get more money off of them. That's the whole point. Because you're moving them in, they're coming here, they're putting places in for people to use the beach. Get the money from these people who are making all the money. We did one with the data center. Palm Coast got the data center. We gave them access to the beach for cheap. That guy's going to make billions with them access centers for them data centers. All that stuff coming across them lines, they're going to make billions of dollars. Why didn't you get a big chunk of money from them? We could have lived off that money, renourishing the beach forever. The data center people are going to make billions. I don't understand why we didn't do that. You already know you're going to get Florida dollars. That's in there. Tourist dollars, you know that's in there. You can use the general fund half-cent. And you got to invest the money that you get ahead of time. If it takes 8 years to redo it, you've got 8 years to make the money off the money you got. But you got to get a bigger chunks off of people that are going to make the most money. Quit going after the little people. I was in those meetings. You got a guy at the beach, got a little house. He happens to be close to the beach. He has a little house. We're going to get you. Now I live over here, but I come to the beach, and there's 6 people in my house. I come to the beach all the time. One guy lives over here in a little house, doesn't go to the beach. He just happens to live there because he wanted to. But now you're going to get him? No. You got to look at it different. The money thing, you got to get better money people, better. You got to get it better, invest it better. You got to find a better way to do it. I was here, the presentations always comes down to who can we get on the taxes that live near the beach. It's not the way to work it. So you just got to be more creative. So be more in tune with more money-making people. That's what you got to get.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hello, Marjay Santori. I live in Flagler Beach. I grew up in Palm Coast, and my family owns a business on County Road 305. We mitigate nature every day, whether it be the roof over our heads and other ways. Granted, the ocean's a much bigger beast, but I commend the Army Corps' project that they did in Flagler Beach with the renourishment. It saved our beach from this last hurricane. And it's a great place to come and visit. And I think the whole county gets a great use out of it. And with the pier being rebuilt, I think we're going to have a lot of visitors for when there's fireworks again on our beach. And we can't forget that either. So thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker. Welcome.
I'll try and make this as quick as I can. Just so that you know, I was a project program manager and director. So I'm used to seeing work plans coming out of this stuff. I saw this as a workshop, and I think I came into this thinking it was a workshop, and it's not a workshop. So I think I'm going to cover a few things here. The airport overlay ordinance. By the way, my name's Faith Walker. I guess I'm trying to understand who's going to enforce the getting everybody together and making sure that some decisions, that people are educated and that some good decisions go into that March date. Sounds like there's a March date coming up. Is there going to be a group to get together on that?
A workshop and a meeting.
Okay. And it needs to happen pretty quickly in case there are follow-ups and things like that. I also would like to say with the airport, there are ways of doing things as far as charging some of the planes that are louder than certain decibels. There are also things with making sure that they are 500 feet up there. If there's a tower over there, any radar should be able to see that. I will say that we have helicopters as well flying over my neighborhood, extremely low, and we all have stucco. And I know out in Ostrander when that happened with an Army plane that flew over our house on our street, it cracked every one of our houses, and we all went after them. So I'm just saying, these helicopters, it's real easy to wreck a helicopter. And if you guys haven't been up in one, I recommend you do. And they're flying way too low over houses. There's going to be an accident. That's all I'm going to say. And they're going to crack stucco on people's houses. And I don't think it's funny. I keep watching you kind of smile, and you may not, that may be a nervous thing, but I don't care for it. Also, when we're talking to developers and we're trying to understand impact expenses and all that, back to this gentleman's point, all of that should be done before there's any settlement with the developers. I'm not quite sure why we're not passing these expenses on to the developers who are making millions here. So I'll go back to that point. There is a right way to plan with the developers, and you don't sign contracts with developers until the overall impact analysis and studies are done and the costs are evaluated and passed on. So I don't understand why we're doing things backwards in Florida. Let's see, 30 seconds. Which one do I want to hit? On the seawalls, I don't know one way or another. I don't know enough about this. But what I will say is it sounds like there are tons of people that have ideas that could come together and there could be true work plans created. What I'd like to hear before I come into these is that these plans are shared with everybody so that they can come in with their comments from their staff and actually be able to have these conversations in here with us. So that's some of my comments. Project plans would be nice to be able to see who's all working on everything. It would be really nice.
Thank you. This is kind of a hybrid workshop, which is separate. Yeah, well, it's a meeting. But appreciate you. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. We're going to go ahead and close public comment at this time. Is there any closing comments from anybody on the dais? All right. I would just add, as we go back to our individual boards, is to keep in mind the Flagler community as a whole, the importance of the beach. Its tentacles spread everywhere throughout the county. There's no place immune, and so I just look forward to you all bringing back the conversation and seeing you back here on March 12th. So with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, sir. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for being here, for everybody at the dais. I appreciate your input and your time. Thank you.